Hey, we're back. This is John.
It's Paul.
And Turk.
That is What If Geeks. And we are here with the second half review of the Obi Wan Kenobi series, episodes 4 through 6, or parts 4 through 6. Sorry. They don't do the episodes, that's for movies. Uh, all I can say is, I guess the last time we left off, Reva had just captured Leia. And then we're going to jump into episode 4. Anybody want to start?
Sure. So Kenobi's all fucked up from being burnt up by Vader. They go back to a hideout that belongs to the Path on Jabim, I think it was. Yep. There's a lot of like Arabic sounding names and stuff in this. I didn't even kind of realize it. I don't know if it's like because there's Tatooine and desert theme and they're just playing off of it, but like the people, you got like Tala, Haja, Jabim is the planet. Maybe it's just happenstance, but anyway, sorry. So they go to Jabim. He's getting healed up in a bacta tank, having some flashes or visions about Vader in his bacta tank, right? He eventually wakes up and wants to hop out, and she's like, "No, you're injured. You need more time to heal." It's funny. The bacta tank is, I guess it existed in Star Wars before, but like between Mandalorian and Obi Wan, we've gotten more views of the damn bacta tank than anything, and I feel like it would have been really useful in a lot of different places in Star Wars.
Yeah, because the only other time you ever really see it is what, Empire, when Luke goes in there.
Yeah. Oh, and then Mandalorian, right?
Boba
Fett, not Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Boba Fett, sorry.
The Book of Mandalorian.
Mandalorian Part 2, yeah. Season 2.5. So I guess we cut over to Leia. She's being interrogated by Reva. Weirdly, about the path. This is like a little bit bothersome to me because maybe it's bad writing. Maybe I'm just being too critical, but she was a kid, and with other kids, and that whole thing, like torturing a kid, seems a little bit crazy. But beyond that, like, why the fuck would Leia know anything about the path? Like, she literally found out about it the day prior, and she's never been to any of their bases or anything.
Right, like you kidnapped her from Alderaan. You know where she's been.
Yeah, right.
Right.
How would you know?
And then the other part that bugs me is like, up until this point, she had like a singular focus of catching Obi Wan, and now she's worried about the path that helping other Jedi escape. Like, okay. So anyway, so this is the Inquisitor Fortress on Nur, I think it's called. Kenobi and Tala decide they're going to go break into that fortress. I think she goes there first because she's an Imperial officer and tries to get in, and they're like, "You don't belong here. This isn't your sector." And she's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll tell Vader that you're incompetent and won't let me in." So that's how she gets in, so she can get Kenobi away in, right, to rescue her. So that's ultimately successful. Although why Kenobi's going through, and I wasn't quite sure what the point of this was. Maybe it's just some little extra lore stuff, but it seems like many of the Jedi they captured and tortured were trapped in like preservation tanks in like a tomb in the basement or whatever. Like,
I think they were all dead.
Yeah. I assume they were all dead. Yeah.
But I don't know. It was almost like a trophy room.
I was like, that's kind of what it reminded me of. Like,
they're trapped in amber, like the mosquito from Jurassic Park, from the very first Jurassic Park.
Like, why keep?
Force will find a way.
Why keep a handful of dead Jedi? Like most of them in Order 66, at least what we've seen from other stuff, were just killed right on the spot. Like, why did they capture some and then decide to put them in a little trophy room?
Maybe this is something the Inquisitors just do that we don't know.
Yeah, it could be, I guess. After they torture
everything
them.
else was like the clone troopers. They attack and just kill them.
But one of them was even a youngling, which means they've been doing this like since the beginning, because there's no more youngling Jedis, right? This is what, 9 years later or something, 10 years later. So that kid didn't just get caught, they've had him for a long ass time.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Weird. It is weird. So anyway, they do rescue. They do end up being able to rescue Leia, but Tal's cover gets blown. There's a whole weird scene about she's a spy. Yes, of course I am. I'm like, what? But then she like does this whole flip thing on it. But
The other thing is interesting. We have such technology in Star Wars that we have ships with hyperdrive and whatever, but no one has earphones. They have to communicate with this stick that is both speaker and receiver. And she's sitting at a console where there's another soldier like one desk station away, and she's like, okay, I've infiltrated the top secret base. I'm gonna release the thing so you can get in. And the guy's looking, and she's like, what? Shouldn't you go do something, other soldier guy?
Right. Yeah, it was very weird. Now I know, like, canonically where this lies, that intercom microphone thing makes sense because in A New Hope you see it's the same one that Luke and C-3PO use to talk to each other. So timeline wise it works, but yeah, like you said,
as a device, as a, I guess, storytelling device, like you need to hear their voice and hear the other person back. So I guess it's easier than like they have to do this thing the whole time. But
so not to sidetrack too much, but it's very much a choice on this whether they want to like fix it or just fucking leave it and let it be. Because I don't know, I know you guys don't really watch Star Trek, but that Strange New Worlds series has come out, and it's about the old Enterprise, but they were like, fuck it, the old Enterprise looks stupid, it doesn't make any sense, let's give it like modern technology, and they just kind of just went with it, like hell with it. And so the Enterprise in that, even though it's early, like before Kirk time, it looks more modern than like the Enterprise on Star Trek Next Generation. And so interesting. I mean, I guess however they choose to handle it, whatever. It seems like Star Wars is interested in doing continuity down to the little minute detail between it. So it is what it is. But you're right, it's kind of goofy. Although ultimately they're fighting with swords when they've got blaster pistols. So and it's not even just the Jedi. There's like vibro knives and axes and other bullshit that people fight with all through the movie. So I guess it is what it is. Let's see. Where the hell were we? The Path Commander Roken, I think, eventually comes along with his guerrilla troopers or whatever, and they save them so they can escape. Vader gets pissed off at this point at Reva, like, how the fuck did you do that? But then she lets him know that actually I have a tracker in Leia's droids, so we can follow them. I expected this, basically. Or just in case, right? I guess what it really was. But so I think that's where part 4 ends, somewhere around there, really close.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it ends on the droid's little eye turning red or whatever. So
yeah.
All right. Yeah, so we jump over to part 5. And this was cool. You open up on a flashback to Obi Wan and Anakin training, and it was funny to me because, well, again, I've said it before when we talked about this thing opening, how Hayden Christensen was coming back to the show or to the Star Wars universe, and it was nice to see him have a little bit of redemption. Like here, you actually see him, as Anakin back in the day. However, he's 2022 Hayden Christensen. Like he should have been a little bit younger looking. Like you just made an entire Luke twice, and you got it better the second time. Like you could at least like CGI him a little bit, get rid of some of the crow's feet or whatever. But it's all good. It was cool. It was you definitely got better acting out of him than you did in the episodes 2 and 3. And it's him and Kenobi training, the dueling. Kenobi trying to tell him to, rein in his feelings, and Anakin just trying anything he can to win, kind of thing. But then we immediately cut to Vader, so it's obviously like a memory of his. But that gets a little fuzzy because they keep flashing back throughout the series, so it's like both of them remembering the same training for some reason, whatever it is. Cut to Vader and the third sister. She informs him where Kenobi is, going to Jabim, or he's on Jabim. So Kenobi and the others actually meet up with the rest of the Path, which are soon to be the Rebels, on a different planet, or they prepare to leave the planet, but then Vader shows up, tells them lock down the facility, and they seal the doors on the place, using the droid to cut a wire or something. It does. It looks like it cuts a wire. That'll come into play later. So then another flashback to the training, blah, 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 more schooling of Anakin. And then we cut back to them trying to figure out why the doors won't open so they can get the hell off the planet. Well, the only way to fix it is to go into this little air duct. And Leia says, I'll go get me a ladder. And Kenobi lets the one person he's supposed to be fucking protecting go into this thing to go fuck around with some electricity. And they're all like, are you serious? And he's like, you trust me, I trust her. What the fuck? Like, you barely know this kid.
Yeah. And by the way, she's a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, she's 10. She looks like she's 6.
Yeah, she does look like, yeah.
Yeah. So they put the whole fate of their escape plan on the shoulders of a 10-year-old and say, go for it, kid. And she climbs up into this little hatch, trying to fix this wire. Meanwhile, Reaver and the stormtroopers show up. They're on the other side of the door, trying to get through it. And that's when Ben goes to the door and starts talking to her, right? Am I right there? About?
I think so.
Tells her, she's like, we're going to get through to you. We're going to take you. And he talks to her about, he says, how did you know? How did you know Vader was Anakin? And he said, there's no way, you're too young. You had to have been there. And then, it dawns on him. He says, you are a youngling. And then we flash back to the Order 66 scene from the very beginning of this series. So I was right on that one, right? She's the older youngling that's with all those kids that Anakin / Vader comes up on, and he attacks. And she admits that she hid among the bodies. So Ben says, he goes, you're not really coming after me. He goes, you're not serving Vader, you're hunting him. Like, you want him. And basically she's like, he killed everybody. They were the only family I had. So now you're getting into what's really pushing her motivation, right? It's not necessarily getting Vader. Maybe some of the Inquisitor thing got into her and she had a good purpose of hunting Jedi and everything, but really she wanted to get close to Vader, right? She wanted that Grand Inquisitor spot. She wanted to get close to Vader so she can kill him out of revenge. So finally they break through the door and there's a huge fight between the Path and the stormtroopers and a loading robot that knows how to shoot blasters now. He's back there again.
That is like the most humanoid acting robot I think we've seen in Star Wars yet. I mean, even like the movements and stuff was nothing like the other droids. Like,
yeah, like even like C-3PO, where he's like a prissy little pansy because he's just a protocol droid. But yeah, he's very artificial moving.
Yeah, even like the assassin droid for Mandalorian, like, I mean, it walked mostly normal, but then it had all this crazy spin shit, and it wasn't really human. Like, this one was more so than even like K2SO. It was just like very, and it could lie apparently and fuck around with people.
Yeah.
That was a little interesting. I want to stop here too, just to say something else. This whole scene right here was like super reminiscent of Last Jedi, when they're trapped in the cave and eventually he goes out to face him, or what. Like, the whole thing was like, I was like, man, this is like super familiar. And then it made me think, like, had they been doing this in previous episodes? And it really didn't dawn on me, but I went back and looked, like, Episode 3, when they do the showdown and they have the fight with Vader and he ends up clipping the little steam vent and spraying it. That shit is straight from the Cloud City and Empire Strikes Back. Like they like redid it. And then episode 4, what we just talked about, that's like the Death Star escape in the New Hope. Like
Yeah.
they're like borrowing like concepts from the movies, and it didn't even dawn on me that it was happening until this episode. I was like, man, this is fucking Last Jedi. What the hell's happening right now?
Yeah, well, it is very funny how Star Wars, all of it seems to be cyclical for the most part. Like even like Force Awakens was more of a soft reboot than anything else. You know, it was very much the same, just adding on to what happened before.
Mhm.
But it was the same basic story of A New Hope.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, they do that repeatedly. I think Mandalorian was the only thing that was basically new. And even there, it was just a Western. So yeah, so all right.
Well, Mandalorian wasn't new at all, though. Remember, like half the episodes borrow from like old
Japanese samurai movies. Yeah.
Yeah, samurai movies and
Yeah.
stuff. Shit, one of the episodes was literally a samurai movie.
Yeah.
What was it? Seven Samurai.
It was Samurai, yep.
Yeah, like just played out in a different setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I hadn't recognized the parallels at first. It wasn't until this episode that it really hit me. I was like, man, shit. They're like redoing little parts of scenes from the movies.
Oh, yeah.
They're not really in order though.
Each of the flashbacks, I guess, the Kenobi Anakin flashbacks are like, okay, how in this episode, when they have an interaction, is Anakin / Vader going to react? And how's Kenobi going to, based on what happened in the flashback scene, right? So
Yeah.
and we'll get to that when we get to the showdown. But yeah, it's all sort of told in foreshadowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
So
sorry
yeah,
to
so,
sidetrack.
no, you're good. Yeah. So basically, they're overrun by stormtroopers. They're being pushed back, and Tala gets shot. So she decides to sacrifice herself to save Kenobi, with a thermal detonator. That was great. Can't remember. Have we actually seen one go off? I think in Mandalorian we saw one go off before, right?
I don't even remember.
But like to see it like that close in a confined space. Now you know why Jabba almost shit himself in Return of the Jedi.
So
That thing was gonna annihilate his ass.
I think I said that. I don't know if I said this during the episode or before we started, but there's like a lot of like Arabic, Middle East kind of themes throughout this whole thing with people's names and the locations and a lot of this stuff. It actually bothered me slightly that she like became a suicide bomber, martyr, whatever. And it's like, come on, man. I mean, I get it, and it was ultimately not really for much. I mean, I guess the Path folks escaped, but well, you haven't got to it yet, but ultimately Kenobi does get captured.
Yeah, that was the funny part because they get back into the hangar, and the door's still not open. So Ben says, "I'm going to buy some time, make sure we're ready to go." And he goes back to the door. Yeah, no, that's when he talks to Reva again.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah,
because that's where then he convinces her to kill Vader at that point.
Yeah, because he's like, you and I can end this together. And she whispers through the door, how do you know he won't see it coming? And so he comes out, gives himself up. They capture him. She sends him back into the door with 2 stormtroopers. Like she's already got him there with a full squadron. So obviously, I mean, that's when you knew she was going to go along with his plan, because she sends him back in to seal him in the door and trap him, quote unquote, with just 2 stormtroopers. He's going to fuck them up. And he does. So, Eric, you're kind of freezing up a little bit.
You freezing up, bro.
Well, I'm looking at Paul and he's moving and I'm moving and you're not. So it must be you. All right. So he overpowers the 2 stormtroopers and takes off. Vader shows up and arrives in the hangar bay, just as the ship's taking off. And now he does the really cool thing where he uses the force to stop this damn cargo ship in midair, drags it back down to the ground, and then rips apart the outside of the ship to realize it's empty. Right? So it was a decoy, and another carbon copy of the same ship is right on the other side of the hangar. That thing takes off while he's distracted with the first ship. So they get away, and then Reva sneaks up on Vader. Now, if she wanted to kill him,
tries to sneak up on Vader.
Yeah, she tries to sneak up on him. She ignites her lightsaber and goes for an overhand blow, and he just blocks it easily, right? And he says, did you think I did not see this coming, youngling? Right? So he knew, yeah, did you think I did not see this, youngling? Like, so he knew exactly who she was, right? So then they fight. This is, I gotta say, this is one of the cooler fight scenes I've seen, especially because it's Vader. It just shows you how powerful he is. The first minute and a half of this thing, he doesn't even ignite his lightsaber. He's using the force to deflect everything she's doing, and like casual too, like
he's just sort of flicking it aside, like he's not even trying that hard. He's just doing that thing where like the master just barely has to turn his body a little bit as the like and he's
he's just barely moving. It was really cool. I mean, he made her look like a damn fool, and he stops her spinning dual lightsaber blades, takes it from her, breaks it in half, throws one of them down on the ground to her, and then they go to fight again, and he winds up stabbing her again.
Yeah.
Or not really again. Yeah. It's never completely clear if he really stabbed her as a kid. She said she hit through the bodies, but the flashbacks to that scene make it look like he stabbed her. But I'm not sure exactly if that was true or not. But either way, he stabs her through the gut with the lightsaber and leaves her.
We need to mark this down because when we do the Geekies, it won't be for another 8 months, right? Maybe more when the Academy Awards come out in March of next year or whenever it is. This scene needs to be in fight scene or ass whipping or something.
This is definitely the ass whooping.
We just need to remember
He didn't even try to whoop her ass.
Ended up in both.
Yeah. This
actually,
one,
no, there's a better fight scene actually.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so he leaves. And he before he leaves, he basically tells her how much garbage she is, and then the former Grand Inquisitor, who we thought she killed, comes walking in, and so he's still alive. Takes back the little pin and says, "We're going to leave you where we found you, in the gutter." And they left. And right before we close the credits, you see Obi-Wan's communicator on the ground next to her. It's kind of all busted up, but Bail Organa's message from earlier about, if I don't hear from you, I'm going to head to Tatooine to help with the boy. It's kind of playing a little broken up or whatever. And then you see like something in her face kind of like dawns on her. So basically there's another kid that Obi-Wan's worried about or whatever. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But then that's pretty much how the episode ends, right? They've escaped. Vader's pissed again, still. And Reva's left for dead, but she's got new motivation on Tatooine. And then we go to part 6.
Right, and it just closes with like a sleeping Luke.
Yeah.
Right, asleep in his bed. We talked about episodes 1 through 3 and how Reva's character is sort of flat. Like we didn't know, we suspected, but we didn't know for sure that she was one of the younglings. She's just this intensely driven, two-dimensional character that everyone said needed to calm down, and she was like, no, screw you. I'm getting Kenobi, I'm getting Kenobi, I'm getting Kenobi. And then they have this scene through the door and she's all of a sudden like, okay, cool. I'm not really here for you. I'm here to kill him. And that's kind of a big flip. And then when she realizes, oh, he's gut shot, he's run me through with a lightsaber. My insides are cooking, but now I'm going to go after the kid for what? Like, I guess I don't kind of get if she was really out to get Vader, why is she going to go after Luke now? Because Kenobi might be there, or now she just
in the
mad?
beginning, I figured her obsession with Kenobi was because she knew if she kills Kenobi, it would get her closer to Vader.
Yeah.
So that was a decent play for the whole revenge thing.
Right.
But now coming into part 6, right? Without giving anything away, but the whole thing is a damn spoiler. So her motivation to go to Tatooine, to go after Luke, that was, I agree with you. Like, what the fuck was the point of that? Because now you're going back and now you want to hurt Kenobi again?
Right.
Because you don't know who these kids are.
Right.
Nobody knows who these kids are.
Right. Or you knew that she figured out because Kenobi knew Organa.
Right. Kidnap her.
Right. But all he said was, I'm going to go get the boy. He didn't say Owen could, Owen Skywalker, or whatever Owen's last name is.
I didn't understand how, but I felt like she somehow knew it was Vader's kid, because once she gets to Tatooine, not to jump ahead, and they ask her, what the fuck, what are you doing? Why? And she says, justice. Like, I couldn't kill Vader, I'll fucking kill his kid. That's what I took from that, but maybe that isn't it.
I was wondering whether or not she knew too, because she is outside of Kenobi, she's the only one that knows who Vader really is. So if she could have put two, but I mean, for her though, she wasn't there for any of that other shit. She was a youngling.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless
right.
she
couldn't know.
Unless she knew, like, all right, she knew enough about Anakin Skywalker, where he was from, and all this other. But it's not established that he just walks around talking about it all the time. I mean, he complained about it to Padme about how much he hated sand. It gets everywhere. But
yeah, she could. I don't think she could have known.
I feel like they established earlier, and I know that it wouldn't really make a lot of sense, like in this exact context, but that she has some kind of ability to read minds or know what people are thinking or whatever, and that's the reason that she was like the interrogator kind of person. Anyway, it was like maybe episode 2.
Yeah, it could be because she was trying to do it to Leia, and she was like strong.
But
because Kylo Ren does it too in Force Awakens. So I mean, yeah, it's an ability. But now
she would have had to got that information from Kenobi's head, or
she wouldn't have gotten it from a fucking message.
Yeah, or one of the Organas who she didn't run into. So.
And if she has that power, she would have known Leia didn't know anything about the past.
Well, yeah.
Well, true. Yeah. Now, I think that was just the obsession with Kenobi. She was just going after. She wanted to find Kenobi. So I don't know why she was interrogating her about the path, but whatever.
But I mean,
what if?
But in this last part, that doesn't make sense anymore, right? Like she's
none of it makes sense. Unless you
kill Vader, there's no reason to get Kenobi to get closer to Vader because you already fucked that up. Like,
yeah, I don't know what her motivation is here, except for the fact that if we go back and listen to the message from Bail Organa, maybe he does say, "I'm gonna go help Owen with the boy." I think he says that. So if he says that, that's the only other person she knew on Tatooine. Remember when she, of course, of everybody on that goddamn planet, the one person she asked his name is Owen, right?
Yeah.
So it just clicks in her head, like, Owen really does know Kenobi or whatever. But again, why is she going after Kenobi if she was just siding with him? So it's very confusing. She's a very mixed up character. But we need some type of motivation to move the plot forward after we've already pretty much wrapped up most of the damn series. So, all right, yeah, here we go. So she's headed to Tatooine. Good. Who wants to go now?
I'll do 6 since I wrote up the thing. All right, so we open with the ship that Kenobi and the remaining members of the Path is being pursued by a Star Cruiser. their hyperdrive's down. They can't jump. The thing's gaining on them. They're having to dodge the laser bullets and all the stuff. They look like they're in trouble.
Hey, by the way, deviating from the one Star Wars property ever to not have a fucking space chase, they did one here.
Yeah, right. Got to get it in.
Yeah, right. We
So
got a
they're
Vespa chase in Boba Fett instead.
low speed Vespa chase. They're trying to figure out what to do. Can they fix the hyperdrive? How long is it going to take? Going through all those things, Kenobi decides, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to lead them. He wants me. He doesn't want all of you. We can, I'll lead him away. You guys keep going and get the girl home and I'll go do this. And they're like, no, don't go. And he's like, no, I got to do it. And you see the escape pod go this way. Ship starts going that way. I think it's the Grand Inquisitor stands there and he's like, they tell Vader, all right, that pod has one life form aboard. He goes, it's Kenobi. And then Inquisitor's like, we can knock out the whole path right there, right now. Don't go after Kenobi. Like, it doesn't make sense. And this one doesn't start on a flashback. No, I don't think it does. And he goes, nope, I'm going after Kenobi. And you're watching it like the entire rebellion right there. You just blew it. Like, there goes the Death Star, there goes you, there goes the whole thing, essentially right there.
He doesn't know that yet.
No, he doesn't. He goes down and goes after Kenobi, and they end up having this massive fight. And he's like, that's it, my former master, like, you're going down. And they start force throwing rocks at each other, doing the whole thing. He opens up the ground.
Kenobi's got his mojo back.
Yeah.
Vader even comments on it.
He's like, oh, you got your strength back.
You got your strength back, but the weakness is still there.
Yeah. Opens the ground up under him. And finally, Kenobi gets up, fight keeps going. He ends up actually really kind of beating Vader.
Dude, he goes fucking God mode on him.
Yeah.
He like picks up half the goddamn continent and just like throwing it.
Yeah. ends up like running him through the machinery that kind of keeps him going, cracks the helmet. You can actually sort of see Hayden Christensen, the actor, underneath all the burn makeup. You can actually see him. And he's down. Like, he could have finished him off. And he takes a step back and he's like, Anakin, I'm sorry. And Anakin tells him, Vader tells him, he's like, hey, it's not your fault. You didn't kill Anakin. I did. I the Vader killed him.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, why in episode 4 he first says, Darth Vader killed your father, killed Anakin Skywalker.
Finally wrap up that loose end.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't lying, and it wasn't just, in a manner.
Yeah, well, because they kind of covered that in Return of the Jedi when Luke asked him, is he really my father? And he says, yeah. Because you told me Vader killed your father. And he goes,
in a manner.
Well,
in a manner of space.
From a certain point of view. That's his, from a certain point of view.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also something I wanted to comment on was when he cracks his helmet. One, I love how the voice modulator keeps cutting in and out between Vader and Anakin's voice because it's broken now.
Yeah.
The whole attack on the chest with the hilt of the lightsaber, that was genius. Yeah. I know you can't fucking breathe, motherfucker. So what's this? But when he cracks that thing open, the same, very similar thing happens in Clone Wars when Vader Vader and Ahsoka come face to face and they fight. She does the same thing, like it cracks and she can see his eye, and she's kind of taken aback and she's like, Master, and then he goes after her again. But so it's funny because it was literally the same exact spot. It was like Vader's got to do something about that spot in his fucking helmet.
Right. Tore that up.
Definitely a weak spot in his helmet. But yeah, it was an excellent fight. It was amazing. It blew my fucking mind. To the point where every time they do something like this, though, every time you see a really cool lightsaber fight, especially now when you like started with Rogue One, right? Vader fucking hacking up rebels left and right, right? And then you see like here where him and Obi Wan are fighting each other and they're throwing rocks at each other, this and that. It's cool to get to see these really big fights that we wanted to see, but it really takes a lot more away from that last fight between Vader and Obi Wan in A New Hope, where they're just kind of pivoting around each other.
Well, they're old. They're 10 years later.
Yeah.
And an aging 10 years.
10 years later, and they're
They
30
age
years
like
older.
fucking German shepherds.
Right.
They age like German shepherds.
Yeah. And so, meanwhile,
But I didn't really think about this, John, but there's like some cool, I don't know what it is, an allegory or something in there. You're talking about the mask.
Mhm.
Like, Obi-Wan cuts that right side of his mask off, right? I mean, if you're looking at him.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned, Ahsoka actually cuts open the left side to see his eye. And then Luke is
the same side.
I think it's the opposite side. Is it the same side?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look.
But then Luke is the one to like fully unmask him and finally like bring back Anakin to his original self. There's kind of like some cool little
That's a good point. I'm gonna have to go back and look and see, because maybe you're right. Maybe it was the other side. I just thought
it doesn't even matter if it's the other side. I mean, it's just the idea that like
his former
Ahsoka
master
got close,
former
Obi-Wan
Padawan.
got close, but they couldn't bring back Anakin, and then Luke does it in the end and fully removes the helmet, so to speak, and takes the Vader persona away, right?
Yeah. So all right, go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead.
so meanwhile, Reva manages to track down. She gets back to Tatooine, goes looking for Owen.
For motivations only known to her.
Correct. And apparently, I didn't know this, but it's I don't know, not all that hard apparently to get over gut shots by a lightsaber, because
Right? Yeah.
not only does the Grand Inquisitor do it in the episode 4 or 5, but she's like, she's not okay, but she's walking around like you just took a lightsaber through the belly, and she's up moving around.
Yeah, we talked about that at work too. Everyone was like, "How the fuck did she?" And I was like, the only excuse I can give them, because one of my favorite things about fandom is you get the fans that will come in and explain away what might be a mistake and try to help it be right.
Right.
She is, an Inquisitor. She's a dark side user, right? They're fueled by rage, pain, all that shit. Like Vader is so powerful. They've said it before in like comics and stuff. He's so powerful because he's constantly in pain, and it fuels his rage. So if she was doing the same thing, using the pain to fuel her rage, then maybe, because she does, like you said, like when she comes and attacks, and Owen and Beru, for people who just got like fucking turned into s'mores by stormtroopers in A New Hope, they put up a fucking fight in this one.
Yeah,
like they were doing
the last
good.
of the fight they have in them. Like she breaks them.
Yeah, the next 10 years they got nothing left.
Right.
But
so anyway,
when Owen hits her, she does flinch pretty hard.
Yeah,
like he does hit her in the same area, and she flinches pretty hard. So
yeah, she's clearly injured, but like she should be dead.
Yeah.
And so she gets to Tatooine. She starts asking around about Owen. Owen and Luke go into town for something. He's like, "Hey, somebody's looking for you." They go back to the moisture farm and start to prep for this big battle. They tell Luke that the Tusken Raiders are on the move and on the rampage, and they need to hide. He knows what to do. Got this all set up, but he's like, "Go," and Beru's like, "No, we're not leaving you." So everyone's hunkered down for a fight. Reva finds them, comes to the house. They have the knockdown drag out. Owen actually shoots her, and she doesn't block. She manages to not block it because she's very clearly not 100%. in the fight, Luke crawls out. He ends up someplace. For some reason, he's down. I can't remember if he falls and hits his head or something happens.
He's running along the rocks, and I think she uses the force to sweep his legs
like,
out from under him or something like that.
He's down, and she's over him, and she's getting ready to pounce.
He's constantly knocking himself the fuck out.
Yeah. And she can't do it. She I don't know, mentally, physically kind of can't. And she has the flashback again to the scene we saw at the beginning where Anakin, Vader come in. He's not in the outfit, but he's turned to the dark side.
He's Vader then, yeah.
He's executing Order 66. And he locks eyes with, you see the same youngling, they lock eyes, something happens. And she's having this moment. As Kenobi sort of is leaving the planet and leaving a defeated Vader, he has this realization, oh, I better get to Tatooine, something's wrong. He lands the plane, gets out, sees Owen and Beru, they're all screaming for Luke, and she comes in holding...
My favorite part of the whole fucking show, we can't skip that part. They're yelling, Luke, Luke, and he runs up. Where is he?
Yeah.
We don't fucking know. That's
Right.
what I was saying.
You hear us screaming?
That was my favorite part of that whole show. I was like,
yeah,
you got the force. You could have at least sensed they didn't know. Never mind,
right.
Heard them.
So she has him, she puts him down. Owen and Beru freaking out. You see him take a breath, squirm, he's okay. Kenobi and Reva are having, are talking, and she's like, I couldn't do it. What have I become? What am I going to do? And he's like, you have time to decide who you're going to be. Gives her some words of wisdom. She throws her saber down, and kind of takes off.
Yep.
So then we see Leia is finishing getting dressed. She's got her kind of royal gear on, and then she's got these boots, and she's got the holster that Kenobi gave her that was Tala's on her hip,
which was cool because when they first had the holster, Heather asked, she's like, "Is that the one she's got in the first movie?" I said, "Yeah." You see, it's clearly the same one. Yeah. And then once she puts it on with that whitish outfit, Heather was like, "Oh yeah, it looks just like
it does look just like
almost look just like a New Hope."
Yeah.
It was really close.
And so the mom comes in and goes, "Is that a holster?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I like it." So they go down, and she's with the adopted parents and the ship lands. She's like, "Who's this? More cousins?" "No, it's Kenobi." Bail Organa, and he's like, "Thank you, my friend. I can never repay you." And he's like, "That's cool." And then he goes to Leia and he says, "I said I didn't know your parents. That wasn't true. I did know your parents. You were strong and brave, like all these great attributes of your mom. You're also forthright and
passionate
and straight ahead like your father. It's great. You're going to be great. See you later." And she's like, "Will I ever see you again?" He's like, "I don't know, maybe."
Yeah.
She gives him a big hug.
He says, "If you ever need me, he tells Bail again, if you ever need me, you know where to find me." But he tells Leia, "We'll just keep this between us."
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and he tells her if he ever does reach out, she has to be careful, right? Because it put him in great danger. So it makes the whole episode 4 theme, "Help me, Obi Wan," all kind of come together.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that entire speech, we talked about that too at work, where they were like, she doesn't really recognize him or whatever later. I'm like, doesn't mean she doesn't recognize him. She knows who he is. Mm-hmm. But again, the one major thing that she had to do with him was 10 years ago, right? So it's not like she was like palling around with him. She was a kid. So she knows who he is. The message she sends him is, "General Kenobi, you served my father well in the Clone Wars." So she knows who he is. She knows what he's done. She's not, oblivious to him. And through that whole thing, she has no interaction with him. If you think back,
I still think she would have been more like, hey, remember me? You know, you saved me that one time.
the one time she sees him, he's in the middle of a fight with fucking Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And they're running for stormtroopers.
She was also probably like, holy shit, he got old.
Yeah.
He is 30,
looks like
he is
him,
30
but
years older 10 years later, so it might be
Yeah.
hard to recognize him.
Yeah.
Last time I saw
That
you, you were
desert
handsome like
sucks.
Ewan McGregor. Now you're an old man.
But yeah, so we talked about that. I was like, she never really had a true interaction with him in the New Hope outside of sending him a message and then seeing him on the Death Star right before he dies. But they're like, oh, that's a good point. I said, but one of the cool things that I read somewhere was one of everyone's favorite parts about that fight in A New Hope is the last thing Obi Wan sees before he dies is the twins reunited. And that's kind of like why almost a reason why he smirks a little bit right before he gets killed.
Yeah.
So like, one, he knows it's going to turn Luke against Vader and keep him from, going down a dark path. And two, he gets to see them together again.
But also, like, she got kidnapped as a kid. That's a pretty traumatic experience. And he came and saved her, taking her halfway across the galaxy and all these cool, like, she certainly would have been like, oh my God, it's me. Hey, remember? I need you.
Yeah.
But anyway. So Kenobi gets back in the ship, takes off, lands back on Tatooine, packs up all his stuff, gets on his Eopi or Opie, whatever that thing's called. And what?
I was just kidding. I said, like a German.
Heads off to the desert. First, he stops by the moisture farm and says goodbye. And Owen's like, hey, do you want to meet him? And he's like, yeah. And so he jumps off the thing and, they have a quick introduction. He jumps back on the thing, heads off. And just as he does, there's Qui-Gon as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
And he's like, there you are, my man. Where have you been? And he's like, you weren't ready to see me yet.
Yeah, he's like, I've been here the whole time.
It's like, let's go.
Yep.
And this is the part where it dawned on me, and I don't know why I didn't think about this through all the other episodes, because I left there. There's no mid-credit scene, there's no end credit scene, there's nothing else in here, and I left the episode vaguely unsatisfied, and I was like, huh. And then it dawned on me, I should have been ready to feel that this entire show. Because if you think about it, we knew how this was going to end.
Yeah.
Like, Leia gets kidnapped, but we know nothing happens to her.
Right.
Kenobi goes after her and is in danger a lot. We know nothing happens to him. Reva goes after Luke. We know nothing happens to him. We know how this like, we've known the entire time how this was going to end. And still through 5 episodes and until the very end, you're just kind of like, I'm kind of into this, even though you know how it's going to end.
Yeah. Yeah, Heather was like, are they even going to do a season 2? I was like, no, there's no reason to. And then somebody at work said it too. You think there'll be a season 2? I'm like, why? I said, here, I'll pitch season 2. You ready? Obi Wan goes with a grown Luke to go save another kidnapped Princess Leia.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wait, that's 40 years old. Never mind.
I mean, I guess you could have him go do something else that is not part of official canon now. Can be, right?
I mean, Darth Maul is still floating around out there somewhere at this point, because remember he was at the end of Solo, and then he shows up in the Rebels cartoon, and he and Obi-Wan fight. They could tell that story, retell that part of it if they wanted to. Bring Darth Maul back, that'd be cool.
You could have him go do something completely different and go be a good guy in some other sector, in some other thing that never, makes its way back into canon. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know that you're not going to get Ewan McGregor again.
No, there's no reason to do anything else, because unless they want, there's always those rumors about how since most of the fan or half of the fan base hated the last sequel trilogy, they were gonna like reboot half of that shit or whatever, and they're trying to find a way to reboot half of Star Wars. If you wanted to start to tweak and redo some of those other episodes, you could do that, but at the same time, they're also classics and the story's been done. So how much are you gonna change it?
I don't think they would do that.
Yeah.
I don't even think they'd try.
I don't see a need for
All
it.
of this stuff was built around and into the old continuity. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just a nice filler, almost kind of like the Black Widow movie, where it was like a nice flashback, but it kind of explained where her sister came from and yada yada. So yeah, I think overall I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it for what it was, and they did a lot with knowing how you had to land it, and going into it, I didn't really think to myself, don't get excited about any of this because you know how it ends. I was along for the ride, which, so a testament to them. I think there's a couple of missteps with the Reva character, but overall, like, I'm on this ride knowing exactly how this thing's going to end, and I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just along for the ride. So that says something about the writing and the way it's produced and directed and all the stuff.
Yeah, it was good. It's just like any other Disney roller coaster, it's going to end. A New Hope is the gift shop is going to end in.
Right.
It's coming.
Yep.
So, all right. Yeah.
so I mean, we ended up then getting Liam Neeson, Hayden Christensen, and Ian McDermott. We skipped that, but there's a really quick Ian McDermott scene where Vader tells him, he's not going to give up until he gets Obi Wan. But I mean, I wasn't expecting all that. I knew Hayden Christensen, but wasn't expecting.
No, I wasn't expecting Liam Neeson.
That was brief, but
when he did show up, at first I really thought it was just going to be like a piece of stock footage that they just converted
he
into
doesn't
a
say
Force
anything.
Ghost.
He just looks
Right, like he looks at him and then it ends. But then he started talking, and I was like, "Oh shit, no, they went and got him. This is all new."
Yeah.
I was like, "All right, that was cool." And again, the Ian McDermott Emperor thing, that was cool too.
Yeah, there's one scene where he's like, we got to go get Kenobi. He's like, your obsession with Kenobi is gonna, it's gonna ruin you. He's like, that's fine. Kenobi means nothing. Like, on a dime. I was like, that's okay.
Yep. So, which again is another thing, because at this point you couldn't do anything else with Darth Vader and Kenobi, because then you render the one thing Vader says on the Death Star in A New Hope meaningless, where he stops and he looks around and he says, "I sense a presence, one I haven't felt since," and then he trails off and walks away. And so that's what that statement is, what this all led up to, so they don't see each other for a long time. So yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we got anything else on this one?
No, I thought it was pretty good overall. I think they did it really well, actually.
Yeah.
Given the bounds they had to work in.
Yeah. All right, so you guys let us know what you think of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, especially 4, 5, and 6, and this one. Comment down below, like, subscribe, ring a bell. Let us know what else you want to hear about, and we will catch you soon. That's it. Good night, Tony.
Yeah. Good night, Force Ghost, Liam Neeson.
Good night, Suicide Bomber Tala forever.
Damn.